Hello, and welcome to this week's episode of Creating the Vision. I have with me this week such a fun and exciting guest who literally helps people create the vision for how they look, how they present themselves to the world. And so, our conversation this week is one I have been really looking forward to for a while. Daniel Wakefield, born, raised in Canada. So, this is one thing that really stuck out to me when I was reading through your bio. It says it all started with wildlife photography, a hobby that led to publication in several books and magazines, but it didn't stop there. That your growing love for the art of photography and your fascination with genuine human expression led to the founding of Top. You have been mentored by renowned photographer Peter Hurley and became an associate in his headshot crew. And you most definitely bring that expertise with you into each client session. I have been a beneficiary of your excellence, your expertise, your confidence coaching, you name it. I felt like getting my headshots done with you was like a therapy session plus like a confidence booster. It was like going to a mini conference, spending the morning with you. So, welcome to Creating the Vision. I am so excited that you're here. And I'm so glad that this moment has finally arrived for us to have this conversation.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much for having me.
Yes. Oh, my goodness. So, I just want to dive right in because I think that headshots sometimes can be like the womp, womp, womp. Like, not everyone really enjoys getting them because I think we've all had those experiences. I actually was thinking back to, like, remember glamour shots back in the like
Mhm.
late 90s, or I guess mid 90s. Like, I think sometimes when people think of headshots, they think of this most likely might not represent me, but I just need something so that I can paste it onto my Microsoft Outlook or send to my company so that they have a facial recognition of who's showing up
Mhm.
every day to work for them. So, where I want to start though is you mentioned wildlife photography. And I know that before that, you actually had a prior life and career as a high school teacher. So, tell us, I mean, like, I just feel like your vision story is so cool. Tell us about the evolution of not just top tier headshots, but of Daniel Wakefield himself.
Yeah, so again, thanks so much for having me on here. Yeah, I always, from as far back as I can remember, have always been interested in wildlife and nature and interested in educating people about that. And so it just seemed kind of a natural thing to go into, like to get a degree in biology and to go into, teaching high school science. And so that's what I did, and really enjoyed that. And I was there, definitely were a lot of parts of it that were very fulfilling as well. And when we moved down here 8 years ago to Florida, and there was, to make a long story short, my wife Bethany, just amazing person, wanted to be a stay-at-home mom, and I wanted to be able to make that happen for her, and I just could not do that on a teacher's salary. And so it led me to start thinking about how I could do other things. Maybe I just, could keep teaching, but have a side hustle. But it started to lead me into thinking through, I either need to do something else or have something on the side to supplement the teacher's income. And I also started at the same time when we moved down here to get into wildlife photography and kind of that initial passion for science and nature, wildlife, and just the amazing wildlife that we have here in Florida. And I wanted to get out and photograph that and just have, essentially just for myself, to have, keepsakes, remember, these experiences. And it just got me started into doing photography, honing my skills, learning about things, and eventually ended up getting published with some of my work, and really started to actually fall in love with the photography itself, and that as a creative medium for artistic expression. And so I started to think, well, I wonder if I could do photography as a career. And I knew, like, the only kind of my thought process was, I see people doing wedding photography and doing really well with it, but I just wedding photography wasn't for me. Too much stress, and you don't have any weekends available. So I was like, I'm not going to do that. So I just kind of had it on the back burner, and would occasionally do family portraits for like people in our church or things like that. And yeah, just started to think more and more about it, and eventually just kind of happened upon headshots as an option and saw some people who were doing it and making a great career out of it. And kind of while I was doing the side hustle thing and just the occasional family portraits and things, I was really starting to think about genuine human expression and how to capture that. And I've told this story before, but the example I always give is photographing my parents, especially my mom. My mom has the most beautiful smile in the world, but if you tell her to smile, it's the most fake smile in the world. I'm like, Mom, that's not what you look
Mhm.
like. And so it just kind of got me started thinking along the lines of how, just with my mom, how do I capture her in a way where I can show the whole world her beautiful smile and it looks like how she actually looks in person. And so I was really start without even really thinking about it, I was really starting to think about genuine human expression and how to elicit that and how to capture that. And so when I kind of started to think about headshots, it was such a perfect pairing because it's with a headshot, it's all about genuine human expression and how to capture that. So it was a really interesting kind of evolution, if you will, from science and biology and teaching into photography, and then the this expression coaching that I do. And it really kind of is continuing. I've always felt passionate about teaching people, and it kind of is continuing into that, just in a different way.
I I love the link and the connection between, because you would think that, okay, high school teacher, biology, science, all of those things, but they are actually all very interconnected into what it is that you do now. I mean, not even just the nature and the wildlife photography portion, but the biology of just of human nature and those expressions and how we present ourselves. And so I want to touch on that because you have such a unique process that I have always had the luxury and the fortunate opportunity to photograph with people who end up just becoming my friends, so it's like, and you mentioned wedding photography. Like, I still adore our wedding photographer, from my hometown. And like, she's who I always think of when I think of, like, we want to photograph our family. Like, well,
Hmm.
Melanie has to do it. Like, she just has to be the one to do it. And I now, honestly, like, she would be someone who I'd love to have on the podcast as well, just because I think you both have a very similar ability, but hers is definitely in that wedding space, kind of
Mm.
capturing those moments and bringing those out. Yours, it was one of those things where we had met, I think, one time at a coffee shop. It
Yeah.
had like a really impactful, awesome, gathering. But working with you in that capacity was really, really fun because I hadn't done that in a while, where it was just solely kind of showing up to put my best foot forward with a headshot, because there was a certain image that I also was working to, one, get away from, and then two, portray. And I
Mm.
don't know if that's necessarily what I ended up accomplishing, because I think that what we ended up doing was far greater than that. I think I went
Mm.
in with one mindset, and then what you ended up coaching me through was entirely different and a million times better. And so the finished product was something that we were both looking at each other like, oh my gosh, that's the one. Like, this is and
Yeah.
like, that's the one too. Or this brings out an expression or a piece of my personality that I've always wanted to represent, but that I haven't, because I do typically, my content shoots are so fun because we're laughing, we're giggly, and that softer, more serene, calm, pensive, even at times, like, just, the like thought-provoking side of me has never really come out in the pictures that I've taken. And I've always wanted that, but I've
Mm.
never liked any of the ones that I have taken before. And it's always just been the happy, laughing, like, that. But when I'm working with corporations, I need to put a more serious but approachable type of personality, or not say personality, but that's the vibe that I'm going for. So
Hmm.
I want you to talk all about your process and how you create those moments of genuine human expression, because how you do it is magical. And I think I said that to you, but how do you create those moments in your clients and for
Yeah,
them?
no, that's a fantastic question. So to me, it really starts before a client walks in the door, and it starts with, if I'm talking with somebody on a sales call, or maybe even before that, just networking with somebody and just having kind of that genuine interaction. So it really starts with any opportunity to build rapport with somebody and to create that connection so that when they walk through the door of my studio, that most of the time we've already got a level of rapport that's built with one another. And so it's not, just I've never met you before, but it's a, a building on what's already there. And so then it just kind of continues into, it's not just a, hey, you come into my studio, go stand over there in front of that backdrop and stand in front of my lights and let me adjust everything, and then let's take a few shots and then we're good.
Right.
But
Yeah.
it's a conversation, and it's connecting with somebody. So that's really where it starts, is helping my clients feel like they're being heard, like they're listened to, and that if they have particular things that they're trying to achieve, that I'm hearing them and I'm going to help them execute that. So they feel like what ends up happening is they feel empowered because they feel like this is my vision, this is important to me, and this is, like you said, the best foot that I want to put forward. So that's really where it all begins. And then part of it, just the expression coaching that I do once I get somebody in front of my camera, is all about little tips about how, you can look confident even when you don't feel confident. I would say, my clientele are some of the most confident people that I've ever met in my entire life. And yet, this is really interesting, the vast majority of them, as soon as they step in front of a camera, all of a sudden feel uncomfortable. Because my clients typically are not actors and models who love being in front of the camera. They are corporate professionals who, again, in their careers are incredibly confident people, but so many of us feel uncomfortable and not confident in front of the camera. And so, if I can teach somebody some little tricks about how they can look confident even when they don't feel confident, what my clients are finding is that not only is it helping them look confident for their headshots, but it's also making them more aware of their facial expressions when they walk into a room, when they're on a Zoom call, when they're presenting before a big audience and they feel terrified. How can they look confident? So it's actually going well beyond just, our photography session. It's giving people tools that they can use as they move into the future. So teaching people about looking confident, looking approachable, how we're going to get genuine expressions out of them. There is nothing worse for your first impression on the line than looking like this in your headshot.
Yes.
And I can tell you how many people I see on LinkedIn that have profile pictures that look like that.
Mhm.
And it's just not a first impression that you want. A fake smile is not a first impression you want to have. If you've got, like, science tells us that people form first impressions of you within like 3 seconds of seeing your picture,
Mhm.
just subconsciously we're forming those impressions. And so, do you want to have a fake smile, or do you want to have something that actually looks like you're connecting with somebody? And that's where the genuineness comes in. And so part of what I do is I rarely tell somebody to smile. Rarely. I say random stuff to get reactions. You've
Yes,
experienced it.
yes.
And what's really funny is I'll usually tell people, I'll say, if I say random stuff, I'm just trying to get a reaction out of you. And I've actually had people say, well, you just ruined it. Now I know, now I expect it, and it's going to be ruined, and I still get them.
Yeah. Yeah.
I say something and they're just like burst out laughing. I'm like, gotcha. Because yeah, and so that just goes into, trying to get really genuine and working with people to get genuine expressions that, and again, this is something we talked about before. the importance of look in your headshot, whether it's on LinkedIn, company website, email signature, wherever people are going to be seeing your headshot, the importance of looking like you're not smiling at a camera, you're smiling at a person. There is a huge difference in the way that you portray yourself with that. And that's what I want all of my clients to have, is something that looks like they're smiling at a person. So if I can get somebody smiling at me through the camera, guess what? Now it looks like you're smiling at all of your potential leads on LinkedIn and
Mm,
connecting with them because you were connecting with me. So that's the whole like MO behind it,
yeah.
and building connections with people and building rapport and all of those things. It all drives towards how do you want to present yourself on your LinkedIn profile picture.
I love that. There's so much power and in those images being put forward, like the automatic level of confidence boosting that I had, not just throughout the session but afterwards, was phenomenal. I mean, it was one of those things. I left there that day just like on cloud nine. I'm like, this is awesome. Look about these amazing images. And you're right. It's how we are making those first impressions. It is human nature. It is subconscious that we do it. And so if we have something that doesn't fully represent us, and we also know too, I know in the past when I've put pictures out of myself, I either they haven't hit the mark that I was looking for, or they don't capture exactly how I want to be perceived, or not even that, or how I feel like I'm showing up in the world for the people in my life. So I want to touch on something that you mentioned around the expression coaching, because I definitely felt mentored by you throughout that entire process, because there is a difference, I do think too, even in that coaching and that mentorship. Like that mentorship comes from a place of genuine care. And I know that you have been poured into and you have been mentored by the renowned Peter Hurley. And in our conversations, I know we have brought up like the value of that mentorship, both in business and in photography. And you had even shared with me too, which I think is something very poignant and worth sharing with the listeners and with anyone, is the story of how many like lessons that you learned, not just through this process, because people are going to see you and hear you at the level that you're at now, but it has taken you a it's been a path, it's been a journey to get here. So along this path of you creating the vision, not just for other people but also for your own life, talk to us a little bit about what that mentorship has meant to you and how it's kind of shaped some of those even past failures or setbacks that you've experienced along your journey.
Yeah, absolutely. So one of the things that, we've talked about this, I've started to just be a little bit more open about it because I think it's useful for people to hear, is that I did try to start a photography business before TopTier Headshots and it failed. It did not go anywhere. I think there were a number of reasons for that. It was really just a side hustle at that point. I was hopeful of it becoming full time, but it never did, and it never even really took off as a side hustle. And I think one of the things that was lacking was I had zero mentorship at that time, either on the photography side or on the business side. Now, I had really built up my photography skill and knowledge with, wildlife photography and also doing some of the family portrait stuff, but there just wasn't any mentorship, either to help my photography grow in the portrait space or on the business side of things. And that, I think in particular, I just had no idea what I was doing in the photography or business space. And so I think that resulted in just a lack of ability to move forward, to know how to move forward in the business. And so with Peter Hurley and working with him really helped me to really dial in, I think, my ability to capture world class headshots. But then on the business side as well, I had another person who also was in the headshot photography space, a headshot photographer in the DC area. And he was, several years ahead of me in the business and was sharing what he had learned, and I was able to be mentored by him as well. And having that direction of knowing, okay, this is a good path to go in, and this is, here's some mistakes to avoid, and here's some things to think about in terms of pricing, in terms of marketing, in terms of sales, and things like that, really gave me a solid direction to go in my business, and I think really helped me to quickly grow and accelerate my business. And then there ended up being a number of different sources that poured into me, some wise businessmen in my church that I was just able to learn some kind of basic sales principles from, and then people as I grew my network and started to just hang around other, inspiring people that I was learning from, and I was following them on LinkedIn and learning from, what they were posting about and how they were doing, and saying, well, if they're doing that in that industry, maybe I can apply it to my business in my industry, and that'll help me as well. And it all just kind of built and compounded. But having those mentors and finding those mentors has been so valuable to me in my business, just in, I think, like the direction, avoiding the mistakes, all of those things that really helped me to push things forward.
Mentorship is such a vital aspect of life in general, but I feel it's especially important, it's imperative in entrepreneurship.
Hmm.
Because a lot of us are solopreneurs, a lot of us are
Yep.
doing things on our own. So we sometimes can't get out of our own head. We need to hear another voice or someone giving us permission or validating that we're doing okay, or telling us like you've got this. Like it's sometimes it's just even that affirmation or that little voice that comes in that kind of that gives us the much needed like push and boost to keep going.
Hmm.
And the value of mentorship in business is something, it's the same thing with the honesty piece around and entrepreneurship as well. Is I mean it's tough, like being about having your own business. It's so interesting. I always say if I had known what I know now, I don't know that I would have made the leap. I don't know that I went into it a little somewhat blindly, like this is going to be great, this is going to be fantastic, and then you start realizing that running a business is, you're not messing around.
Yep.
It is it is wildly rewarding. I've never worked harder, and I think I think about my business all the time. I'm constantly, kind of in it, and
Hmm.
my goal is to eventually be on it, just like working on it and not in the day to day so much. But right now, I'm in a season where I'm grinding.
Yep.
I'm grinding to build, and eventually, I will have that moment where I can lift, the foot off the gas pedal. But I think that you having those had those experiences and having failed, so to speak, which I know we have talked about this in the past too, that you learn so much more from those failure moments
Hmm.
because it teaches you when you bounce back. One, it provides that resiliency piece for you. It's like
Hmm.
it's builds in resiliency and a thick skin or whatever you want to call it. But it just it trains you to then kind of, I always get the vision of like the slingshot. It's like you kind of get pushed and then you're right back. But you get propelled forward. It might have set you back, but it actually propels you forward because now you know what not to do and what to avoid so that you can get better. And we have to have those moments so
Hmm.
that we can move forward in our success. And I just think that sharing that is also a piece that we have to share with up and coming entrepreneurs, with
Hmm.
younger people who are, either in the workforce or working on their own business. Like it is not going to be smooth sailing.
Hmm.
Eventually it will be, but you're going to encounter some rough waters out there at first. And
Hmm.
mentorship though is a huge aspect of providing a safety net, providing some, a safety net for you and someone that you can bounce ideas off of as well.
Absolutely. Yep.
Yeah. So I want to ask this, and if you could provide maybe some examples for our listeners. What if this has ever happened, or if this has come up? Someone says, like, you know what, Daniel, I'm just not really like, I'm not feeling it, or I don't really see I've never really seen myself how I want to be represented in a headshot.
Hmm.
I don't really know if this is going to work. I don't know if your process is going to work for me. Or they show up and they've just had a day. Like it has just been it's already been, a day for them, hectic, all of the things. And maybe they're not in the right mindset. Can you walk us through how you get people into that mindset? I know we talked about the expression coaching, but like, how do you deal with someone who maybe like bringing a lot into the session before, like, right as they're stepping into to your front door?
Yeah, no, great question. I have to preface this by saying, for all the people that feel nervous going into a photo shoot like this, probably 90% of my clients tell me the same thing. Like, people tell me all the time, just so you know, like, I don't feel photogenic. I don't feel confident in front of a camera. I'm not comfortable. I'm really awkward. You're going to have the most difficult time with me. And it's okay. Those, like, you look at my portfolio and you just think 90% of those people told me that same thing. So
And not to like interject, I'm sorry, but I just like had this feeling. Like, do you think it's because of their past experiences? It's almost as if they're trying to qualify, like, I've not had great experiences before, so I'm just gonna set you up. Like, you're probably not gonna be the one either to get me there.
yeah, I mean, it's very possible, and because I have had a lot of people tell me that their past headshot experience was like school picture day. Stand over
Mm.
there, say cheese, click, and then on to the next person. And so there's no coaching. I had a client tell me recently that a photographer said you can stand over there and you can choose to smile or not smile, and that was the extent of what they were told.
Wow.
And this was like a pretty big headshot company, and so yeah, you do that, you're not going to look like yourself,
Right.
and if you don't look like yourself, it's probably not going to contribute to you feeling confident in front of a camera. So that's just kind of to say, like, there are a lot of people that don't feel comfortable, and it's okay if you're going to have somebody coach you to do this, because that coaching really brings great stuff out of people. But to your point there, to your question, yes, there have been some really interesting situations of, one time I had somebody show up that was essentially in the middle of a panic attack because they were so nervous about being in front of the camera. So it was just kind of a, let me get you some water, some cold water, sit down in one of our chairs and just relax for a minute. Let's just talk, let's just have a conversation, and just take the time to just sit and relax, and thankfully it turned out really, really well in the end. But one particular one that comes to mind that to this day is one of the most impactful stories that I've been able to have the privilege to be a part of. I had a client come in just for a short express session, like half an hour, and just normal, come in the door and talk about, how are things going, have you having a good week so far, and they said, well, no, actually not really. And I was like, oh man, I'm so sorry, I hope that this session, will turn things around and just be a great, addition to your week, and I know we're gonna knock it out of the park. And so that seemed to encourage her a bit, and she was just very, very adamant that the pictures she's taking, they just need to look super confident. She needs to just embody confidence in these images. And I said, don't worry, we're gonna knock this out of the park. We're gonna do great things here. I'm gonna get you looking like this. So that's what we did. And all of my expression coaching was kind of geared towards really highlighting that confidence. And so at the end of the session, when we were looking at my laptop through all of the images that we shot and narrowing it down for her to choose which ones she wanted, we narrowed it down to two. I think it was like two different outfits, and she really did just look over the top. Like, she looked like a boss, like in the best possible way. The kind of expression
Love it.
where, you look friendly, but you also look like when you walk into any room, you're going to own the room. That that's kind of, that what she really, just expressed in those expressions. And so we narrowed it down to those two, and she said, yep, those are the ones that I want. And almost as soon as she like made that decision, she basically burst into tears. And she said, I didn't tell you this before, but I actually got fired from my job this week, like a day or two before the session. And she said, I just felt so deflated. I felt like, I can't even put myself out there again. And I was going to cancel the session. I wasn't even going to do it. And my spouse told me, I think it would be good for you to go and do this. So I decided to come and do it. And she said, you got me looking so, just the way when I saw myself on your laptop and just how confident I looked, she said it actually made me feel confident, and it made me feel like I could get back out there and take on the world. And to this day, I still get goosebumps telling the story. And it was just, it was one of those things that made me realize when I started the business, my goal was I just want to take really great headshots for people. And I knew that those were valuable to people in the workplace, and that's what I wanted to help people with. But what I didn't realize was that if you can help somebody look just super, super confident in their headshot and they can see themselves looking that confident, it's actually going to help them feel more confident in their career and in themselves. And so that's really influenced how I think about what I do, that it's not just it's so much more than just photography. It's the coaching plus the photography, and really with the goal of not just helping people look confident, but helping them feel more confident and being more proud to put themselves out there, whether it's on LinkedIn or a company website or wherever it is that they're doing that. And just like, I just feel so humbled to be able to be a part of that process.
It's one of the things that when we were working together that just really solidified your excellence and your expertise, because you do have that power of bringing that out of people, and then also instilling in them at the same time. So it was something that, like I said, I think I used the term when I like posted it on LinkedIn about our experience. It was just like magical. Like it's as if you like sprinkled some fairy dust or something all over the whole place. And you just have a very inviting and warm way. And I think that's truly a gift. I mean, I think that's when you know that someone is doing what they're supposed to be doing, because I know I sure as heck couldn't coach people in that way, even if I had all the best equipment and mentoring and everything. That's not my gift. And your that story, absolutely, yes, I was doing the same. I'm like was like grabbing my heart and like, oh my gosh, like feeling the goosebumps, because wow, I just think about that as well from an impactful standpoint of someone who was showing up. I think we've all had those moments. I think that's the other thing is like from a human level, we've all had those moments where we are feeling at the end of our rope, or we're feeling like this is just this is just not going to happen for me today, or I'm just not in the right mood, or I mean that kind of rejection as well, that kind of showing up even though she was fired, but knowing, kind of almost like a knowing deep down, like I need to do something and I'm not sure that this is it, but having that nudge or that push from her husband, I think was a great moment. I think you, and then you became the catalyst for her confidence boost
Hmm.
and her, increased ability to see herself how you see her, how other people probably see her, and how she wants to be seen, but that she just wasn't feeling that day. And there's so much power in that.
Yep. And to just kind of to cap the story off, she ended up landing an amazing job just a few weeks after
Oh my
that.
gosh,
So
that's
it was
awesome.
like, wow, that was just amazing, and so thankful to be a part of, like, any small part of that where, somebody goes from feeling so deflated and so defeated
Mhm.
to we're going to get out there and make this happen, and then ends up landing in probably what is just her ideal role that she's gifted to be in. Was just so amazing.
Mhm. Yes. And I just keep thinking about, even during my session with you, I mean, I just kept thinking about the phrase, the saying, a picture, tells a thousand words or whatever, like, if a picture, could say a thousand words, like what would they say? And there were so many that were coming to mind throughout our session and afterwards, even looking at the finished product. And I fully believe that her confidence leaving your session with her headshots are what gave her then the confidence to put herself out there, to promote who she is, what she's about, and ultimately led to her landing that job. And it's it may seem futile to some people, like, oh, it's just one small little step, but it's one small detail that is monumental when it comes to putting yourself out there from a corporate standpoint, or even as the owner of a business, the leader of a team. Even if you are in a board seat, in any aspect or capacity, being able to represent how yourself in a way that aligns with how you feel inside is incredibly empowering.
Hmm. Yeah,
I'm
absolutely.
yeah, I'm so glad that we had this conversation. And so, my last question for you before I get to where people can find you and all of the things and how they can work with you, because I want to tell everyone that they have to work with Daniel. They have to. Everyone has to work with you. But I ask all of my guests this: what is your do the dang goal for this year? What is your burning goal that you are working towards achieving?
Yeah, absolutely. So I don't think I've kind of been hinting at this like on LinkedIn and a couple other platforms, but I am working on a book and writing a book, and I've shared that with you,
Yeah.
and it's almost done. It's almost done the first draft, and super excited. The goal when I started writing the book, the goal was, well, I'm going to write this book for other photographers to help them grow and accelerate their business growth. And as I was writing it, I realized the principles in the book are really extend far beyond just photography. So right now the intended audience of the book is anybody in a creative business, creative entrepreneurship, freelancers, and I think even that's kind of the intended target audience of the book. But I think anybody in a interested in entrepreneurship, in of starting their own business, even just with like a desire to learn more about building a personal brand, will get a lot of value from the things that I'm writing about. So super excited about that. Don't have a launch date for it yet, but hopefully we'll be releasing some information about that over the next couple of months. And just super, I've always enjoyed writing, but this is, and I do actually have a published chapter in a book already, but I've never like published my own solo project, so I'm super excited to get this out there.
Oh, I am so pumped for you. And I can't wait to read your book. This is what I'm so jazzed about. I can't wait to read your book, because I'm sure it's going to be fantastic and provide so many wonderful pieces of information, of inspiration, of empowerment. And I love that you are taking it beyond the photography and into life. And
Mm.
like you said, those principles that just apply to our lives. Daniel Wakefield, you're just fantastic and fabulous. And so everyone needs to work with you. And so, how can they find you so that they can work with you?
Yeah, absolutely. So first thing, I mean, go to toptierheadshots.com and they can find me there. But I love, and you know this, I love connecting with people on LinkedIn. So LinkedIn has been such a huge platform for networking and building my business and my audience. And I like to post a lot on LinkedIn and post a lot about entrepreneurial things and entrepreneurial obstacles and things that we're all facing, and just kind of try to start conversations around those things. So love to connect with people on there. If you're on Instagram, you can follow me on just look up Top Tier Headshots on Instagram, and yeah, just feel free to reach out and send me a connection request, start a conversation. Love to connect with people.
Yes, even if you are not in the South Florida area, you need to connect with Daniel Wakefield. You need to send him.
One
Yes.
thing I guess I could mention as well, if you have listeners, that are even way outside of the South Florida market, a good majority of my clients are here in South Florida, but I do also have clients that have flown me to them to
Mm-hmm.
do headshots, like for their executive team, for I've done headshots for offices of doctors like in California, Denver, DC, places like that, Nashville. So the world is getting smaller with, online networking and things like that. I've also had people fly into South Florida, spend a weekend and then do a headshot session with me while they're here. So headshot tourism, people, it's a real
That's
thing.
right. I love it. I love it. You're building an entirely new industry around headshot tourism. I love it. Come in and get rejuvenated. Get your massage, get
Yep,
all the things, and then, you know, put your face on and go get your headshot done, and just round out the
that's right.
weekend pouring into yourself. I love it. I love that. I love that concept. That's amazing. I think you've just coined a new term. Do something. So, thank you so much. I have loved our conversation and all of our conversations that we have. It's yes, you said it. I mean, you are an awesome person to connect with, an awesome person just in general. You're just a really good person, and I love good people and having good people in my life. And I'm so glad that we got connected. And there's a lot of great things I think that you and I are working on. And so I'm
Yep.
excited to continue that path and share that with all of the listeners down the road, because there might be an opportunity for you guys to work with both of us. So,
Yep.
yes, awesome. Thank you so much for this conversation and for just bringing and providing your expertise and your absolute exceptional talent with the world.
Thank you. Yeah. Thank you, Maria. It was such a pleasure to be on and have the conversation with you.
Yes, awesome.